Tonight, Peter Malinowskis cruises to a second term in an historic victory for Labor. As the election lays bare a major shift in voting, with the Liberals suffering a record loss amid soaring support for One Nation. And we'll have the latest results and more election analysis, with several seats too close to call. Good evening, I'm Bethanie Alderson. This is ABC News South Australia. Also tonight, more bumps at the Bowser as ships cancel deliveries to Australia. And the power bounces back to dominate the Bombers. History has been made in the South Australian election on multiple fronts. Labor has secured its biggest win in the state's history, while the Liberals have suffered their worst. But it was the resurgence of One Nation that was the story on election night. The right-wing party has had its most successful election anywhere around the country in almost 30 years. As it stands, Labor has won at least 32 lower house seats, well over the number needed to stay in government. The Liberals have won just 4 seats so far and only 1 in metropolitan Adelaide. One Nation is projected to secure at least 1 spot in the lower house and is currently ahead in a handful of other electorates. There are 9 seats in doubt. State political reporter Bethanie Richards begins our coverage.
On the crest of an historic wave, Peter Malinowskis and Labor celebrating their biggest win ever in South Australia, increasing an already sizable majority with more than half the votes counted.
I am fortunate enough to be able to lead one of the most disciplined, united political parties in the history of our federation.
But this election has thrown up a curveball. An orange wave has made a splash in SA, One Nation eclipsing the Liberals on primary votes. And while multiple electorates are yet to be called, it's secured at least 1 lower house seat and is likely to win upper house spots too.
I think the rest of Australia is going to be watching what's happening here tonight.
Including the Liberals, who have been reduced to just a handful of lower house seats and only 1 in metropolitan Adelaide.
The voters never get it wrong. And they've sent us a clear message, and it's up to us now to heed that advice.
A message Mr Malinowskis says Labor will also heed on day 1 of his second term.
In a world of serious volatility, we see that play itself out at the ballot box locally, and if you take anything for granted, you're going to pay the price.
Labor's newly minted MPs in the formerly Liberal-held seats of Hartley, Colton, Morialta and Unley kick-started their new careers with a cuppa.
I'm so grateful to have given the opportunity to campaign and to run in the seat that I grew up in.
We have got serious momentum in South Australia, but the challenge is to make sure we turn that momentum into improved living standards for as many people as possible.
A challenge the South Australian public's given Labor another 4 years to overcome. Bethanie Richards, ABC News.
With a look at the count and One Nation's chances of winning more seats, here's the ABC's Chief Elections Analyst, Casey Briggs.
At this point, we still have 9 seats in doubt and an extraordinary number of complicated contests. On the latest figures, One Nation is set to make the final 2 in at least 30 of the 47 electorates. And across a huge swathe of Adelaide, the Liberal Party has fallen to 4th or even 5th place, down to a single-digit primary in around a dozen seats. Labor has won at least 32 seats, and it's ahead in at least 2 others. The Liberals have 4, and they're behind in many of the seats left in doubt. And this afternoon, further counting in Nadgerry firmed up the result in that seat, with One Nation making its first lower house gain. In Nadgerry, which stretches from the outskirts of Gawler to Clare, additional early votes reported today pushed Labor clearly into second place. And with the Liberals preferencing One Nation over Labor, Adelaide Plains Deputy Mayor David Payton is set to become the One Nation member. There are several other seats One Nation is ahead in, including Hammond. If preferences flow the way we think they will, One Nation would win this seat, centred on Murray Bridge. Robert Roylance is the favourite, but we've got no preference count yet. It's a similar story in McKillop in the southeast. Independent Nick McBride has been defeated. This is a Liberal One Nation race, and we think One Nation is ahead. And the party's also competitive in Narunga on the Yorke Peninsula, where Fraser Ellis has been defeated and One Nation has a strong lead on primaries. This is the first time the party has won lower house seats at an election outside of Queensland, and it could win several. Elsewhere, Liberal David Basham is at risk of losing his seat to Independent Lou Nicholson, while Deputy Liberal leader Josh Teague is in a close contest to retain Hyson. And in Morphett, centred on Glenelg, Stephen Patterson is also in a tight battle to stay in Parliament. It's very early days in the count for the upper house, but from what we've seen, Labor's on track to win at least 4 of the 11 seats. The Greens will win 1, and on the Conservative side of politics, the Liberals are on track for 2, while One Nation's in the hunt for 3. This one will take weeks to resolve.
Casey Briggs reporting there, and with that one seat so far secured, One Nation has shaken politics in South Australia to its core. On the current count, it's picked up about 22% of the primary vote. The party's leaders are warning it's the start of a shift that'll sweep the country. Here's political reporter Evelyn Manfield.
A One Nation celebration.
We are the voice of the forgotten South Australians.
Support skyrocketing like never before.
The orange wave is here to stay.
Counting so far shows 1 in 5 voters backed the party.
Nice to see One Nation coming up. It's overdue.
The people do want a One Nation government.
Pauline Hanson signing shirts before sending a warning to the Premier.
I'm leaving you some landmines. They're called One Nation Members of Parliament.
And politicians right around the country ahead of the by-election in the federal seat of Farrer and Victoria's state election in November.
If you're from Victoria, you're watching this, we're coming to support you down there.
Seeking to shake up politics in another state election after largely campaigning on frustrations with federal responsibilities like migration.
They've just had enough of what we call the uni party. The Liberals have done a lot of damage to themselves, and Albanese's on the nose.
It's still unclear just how many seats One Nation will win, but regardless, its significant primary vote last night sends a message to the major parties.
You can see that on the street, now you're seeing it at the polling booth, and I can't see it changing back. I think it's going to strengthen.
You do have to concede that the people have spoken and there's been quite a loud message sent.
If you think there is still such a thing as safe seats, you are deluding yourself.
A seismic shift to politics.
I died for this literally today. I got sunburnt so bad.
In our sunburnt country. Evelyn Manfield, ABC News.
One Nation's impact on the vote here in South Australia was enormous, and it'll have implications federally for the coalition. Here's National Political Lead David Spears.
There were some unique factors in South Australia, most notably years of Liberal Party turmoil that created a perfect storm of opportunity for One Nation. But this result cannot be ignored by the major parties across the country. More than 1/5 of voters have lodged a protest, fed up with the status quo. The One Nation votes came mainly from the Liberal Party, but even with a huge win, Premier Peter Malinauskas acknowledges some of One Nation support came from Labor in the outer suburbs too. For the Liberal Party, the result could have been worse. It's not a complete wipeout, but it's still a humiliation. At a national level, there's still uncertainty over how to deal with this threat. Copy more of One Nation's ideas or reject them more forcefully. Preference Pauline Hanson or not. The federal by-election in Susan Lee's old seat of Farrer is now just 7 weeks away. Not much time for Angus Taylor to come up with some answers. An emboldened One Nation has the coalition in its sights.
David Spears reporting there. Well, as we heard earlier, the state Liberals have suffered a devastating loss, with just 4 lower house seats so far called in their favour. But those left standing are upbeat, insisting they'll form a strong opposition and can see a road back to government. Political reporter Catherine Birmingham has more.
An election night earthquake.
Look, it's a tough night for the Liberals.
The Liberals now hold only a handful of lower house seats after polling less than 20% of the primary vote, falling victim to a surge of support for One Nation.
Lessons must be learnt. There are a lot of things that we need to reflect on.
Among the casualties, former opposition leader Vincent Tarzia.
I did the very best I could, and I'm very grateful to have been not only the member but also have been the leader and also former minister as well.
The fate of others, including current Deputy Leader Josh Teague, still unclear, as those remaining turn their minds to the future. Federal colleagues butting heads on the path forward.
This nonsense that by leaning to the left we'll capture seats that we don't have has been proven wrong more times than I've had hot dinners.
You don't beat a party by becoming a party.
Ashton Hearn says she'll stay the course.
We are a centre-right party and that's where the Liberal Party belongs.
Insisting her party will find its way back and delivering this message to the Premier.
Don't look at how many numbers we've got, but we're going to be a really effective opposition. We're going to be laser focused because that's what the people of South Australia need.
This is the Liberals' worst ever election result in South Australia, but there's a level of optimism within the party in the aftermath. The crushing defeat came as no surprise. All recent polling has been dire, and some had expected the outcome would be even worse. Catherine Birmingham, ABC News.
State political reporter Stephanie Richards joins me now in the studio. Steph, what now for the government and the Premier after this huge victory?
Beth, Peter Malinauskas has become one of the most influential figures in the state's political history, leading the Labor Party to the biggest win it's ever seen in South Australia. He's been re-elected on a platform of increasing housing supply and addressing the soaring cost of living, including through scrapping public school fees. He's also promised to continue focusing on improving the state's health system through hospital upgrades. On health, voters clearly believe Mr Malinauskas and his party are the right ones to lead this state, despite failing to deliver on key pledges made during the last election, including fixing the ambulance ramping crisis. While the Premier has significant public backing, it's too early to know what kind of parliament he'll be working with to get his plans in motion. With such a commanding majority in the lower house, Labor's unlikely to have much trouble passing legislation. But we don't know yet what the upper house is going to look like, and that could change how the government goes about its negotiations.
The Energy Minister has warned there could be bumps in Australia's fuel supplies, revealing a handful of shipments have been cancelled or deferred because of the war in the Middle East. As the conflict enters its 4th week, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, causing a massive disruption to the global oil trade and sending petrol and diesel prices soaring. Here's National Affairs correspondent Jane Norman.
Almost all of Australia's fuel comes from Asian refineries like this one. Petrol, diesel and jet fuel shipped in vast volumes to Australian shores.
We get on average around 81 boats a month delivering fuel to Australia. We're aware of 6 boats that have been cancelled out of that 81 on average.
Those shipments, according to the Minister, have largely been replaced as oil giants scramble to fill their contracts. For the first time, fuel from Texas and Louisiana is on its way to Australia. Hundreds of thousands of barrels on board the Largo Eagle and Nord Ventura, making the long journey from the Gulf of Mexico through the Panama Strait and into Exxon's East Coast terminals.
We have some trade with the United States, but to pluck it from Texas or Louisiana is unusual. That's not going to be a cheap form of supply.
Fuel shipments secure until mid-April, but the longer this conflict drags on, the more vulnerable Australia becomes. There are currently 38 days worth of petrol and 30 days of diesel and jet fuel in the national reserves. Restrictions not on the table yet.
Maybe when you were a kid, David, in the 80s in Sydney, I remember petrol rationing was done by state governments. The state governments do have powers there.
What we need now is a government that keeps all options on the table to keep the fuel tanks of Australians, and especially Australian trucks and tractors, full.
Supplies still too low in some regional areas, but it's the doubling of diesel costs companies are struggling to absorb. The government enters this final sitting fortnight before the budget, confronting an ever gloomier economic outlook. But there is a bright spot. European Union leaders are in Canberra this week, expected to sign a free trade deal 8 years in the making, and one that could add up to $10 billion a year to the Australian economy. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
Overseas, Donald Trump has issued Tehran an ultimatum: open the Strait of Hormuz or the US will bomb all of Iran's power plants. Iran's control of the vital maritime corridor has formed a crucial leverage point over the US and its allies throughout the war. It has taken another dangerous turn as both sides' nuclear facilities come under attack.
An angry Iran strikes the southeastern Israeli city of Dimona, home to a facility believed to house Israel's nuclear arsenal. Iranian state media says it's retaliating against a strike on its Natanz nuclear enrichment facility, reporting there had been no radioactive leaks. Then another attack in nearby Arad. More than 100 people were injured in both strikes. The military says its air defence systems were working, but failed to intercept the missiles.
Enter safe rooms, go into shelters. That's the best way to survive an incident like this when, unfortunately, the interceptions do not succeed.
As the war grinds on into its fourth week, Donald Trump is warning if Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, the US will hit and obliterate their various power plants. Iran has effectively closed the strait after several vessels were attacked by its forces, causing many to avoid shipping out of fear.
But Tehran's also willing to hit beyond the Gulf. It's fired 2 ballistic missiles at a joint UK-US military base on the island of Diego Garcia, nearly 4,000 kilometres away. Both were unsuccessful, but it shows Iran's firepower can reach further than previously thought.
These missiles are not intended to strike Israel. Their range reaches European capitals.
Iranian state media says the death toll there has surpassed 1,500. For days now, Halil and Hamid Mirza Hosseini have been searching for their brother in the rubble of his Tehran butcher shop.
I hope, God willing, we find him safe. We just pray he's only injured and in the hospital, because there's no trace of him here.
Holding out hope while there's no end in sight. Catherine Diss, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Robert Mueller, the special counsel in charge of investigating Russia's interference in the US 2016 presidential campaign, has died aged 81. A former FBI director appointed by George W. Bush, Robert Mueller rose to fame at the head of the probe looking into Donald Trump. His 22-month investigation found that Russia had interfered in the election, but he did not have enough evidence of a criminal conspiracy to charge the president. In a post on social media, Mr. Trump says he was glad he was dead. Mr. Mueller had Parkinson's disease. The world's biggest boy band, the K-pop sensation BTS, has performed their first show in over 3 years. An estimated 100,000 people flocked to the heart of Seoul to welcome back BTS. The megastars have been on a music break while completing compulsory military service. BTS is a huge asset to South Korea's economy, bringing in more than $5 billion a year. The sprawling conflict in the Middle East is causing chaos on markets across the globe. But one country which positioned itself ahead of the oil curve could stand to benefit the most, as Alan Kohler explains.
Iran's biggest oil customer is China. It bought between 80 and 90% of Iran's output in 2025. In fact, some analysts are suggesting that part of the reason the United States attacked Iran on February the 28th was to damage China. Not the main reason, of course, but a nice side effect. And there's no doubt it's hurting. Now, to preserve its supplies, China has had to ban exports of diesel and gasoline, which totaled 2.7 million tonnes just in February. So yes, China is vulnerable. And when China sneezes, Australia catches a cold. But it's not that simple. For a start, China has built a petroleum reserve of 1.2 billion barrels of oil, 115 days worth, so they can last 3 times as long as Australia, for example. More importantly, the war in Iran could be playing right into China's hands. For 30 years, China has been furiously electrifying its economy to reduce its reliance on oil and improve energy security. It now gets more than 30% of its primary energy from electricity, compared with 20% in the US, Europe and the rest of the OECD. The rest of the world will probably now step up efforts to get off oil, having been given yet another wake-up call about its unreliability. And who are they going to turn to? Why, China. The People's Republic completely dominates the manufacture of renewable energy equipment. For the simple reason the government made sure it invested more than anyone else, much more. And as the world's drivers now turn more to electric vehicles because they're sick of queuing at petrol stations and paying $2.50 a litre or more, China stands ready to sell them some. So, if Donald Trump really is thinking the attacks on Iran will give China a black eye and hold them back somehow, it's more likely to be a bit of short-term pain and a lot of long-term gain.
To sport now, and both Port Adelaide and Essendon were looking to bounce back from nightmare first-round losses. It was the home side who stepped up, Port Adelaide dominating 133-70, but a win for the Power was soured by injury concerns for captain Connor Rozee.
Essendon got the first of the game.
First goal for Essendon.
But that was about all. Port dominating in the forward 50. Jason Horne-Francis with 3 goals in the first term.
Who's going to take it all the way to the bank?
A tough quarter, soured by a knee injury for Don's defender, Mason Redman. A nick for Nate Caddy left a huge mountain for Essendon to overcome as Port ran circles around the visitors.
Merritt did well, Berry did better.
Essendon managing just one more major.
Goal, is this the second goal for the Bombers? It is.
Port going into the main break 49 points ahead, but Essendon came out strong. Caddy making sure this goal counted.
And he won't miss this one.
But even a second in a row from the young gun.
Caddy stops, props, snaps, it's round the corner, it's another one.
Wasn't enough as Port continued to charge ahead. But the injury list grew.
Oh, here's a worry. Connor Rozee.
The Port skipper helped off after what appeared to be a hyperextended knee. He was up and walking by three-quarter time, but on crutches by the end of the game. A few Bombers goals softened the margin.
Well, Kako deserves one, gets one!
But it was never going to be enough, with the side facing a second big loss in 2 weeks. While both teams will be assessing their injury lists, with ankle concerns for Bombers SA recruit Dyson Sharp and Port's Miles Bergman. Sophie Holder, ABC News.
The 36ers insist there's no need to panic despite their disastrous start to the NBL Grand Final Series against the Sydney Kings. Adelaide's 44-point loss in Sydney last night in Game 1 of the best-of-5 series was the most lopsided championship series game in NBL history.
It was a loss as ugly as they come.
It had neon lights flashing all over it.
Adelaide was outclassed from start to finish, with Kendrick Davis the star of the show.
Like a hot knife through butter.
It was a Game 1 that showed just how daunting a challenge the 36ers are facing this Grand Final series, but the Adelaide camp is trying to stay calm.
It's only one game, so there's no panic in me. We've got to go back and we got to regenerate our group and get a little more organised.
For MVP Bryce Cotton, it was an uncharacteristically brutal night. Held to 10 points, he struggled from the field and only made it to the free throw line once. He also copped some physical treatment from the Kings. But Sydney insists there was no ill intent.
His hand just got caught up, and I mean, it's not part of the game plan, part of the game, it was an accident.
The result put Sydney 2 wins away from the championship, but both teams are strongly saying the series is far from over.
It's Game 1. We're not celebrating or dancing in the aisles. Doesn't matter if you win by 40 or 2. There's another game coming.
Game 2 is in Adelaide on Friday night. Jacob Kagi, ABC News.
The Matildas are still struggling to come to terms with their heartbreaking 1-0 loss to Japan in last night's Women's Asian Cup final. An enthusiastic crowd greeted them in Sydney today to celebrate their achievements throughout the tournament, but the players are lamenting the trophy that got away.
A healthy crowd of passionate fans did their best to try and erase the Matildas' hurt, but the sting of defeat is still felt deeply.
We're quite upset to not obviously come away with the win of the Asia Cup, but obviously to be here and to see all the fans and to thank them for an amazing tournament. We've made a lot of history with the attendance and it's something I'm really thankful for, to be part of this group and be supported the way we are.
I feel really bad for them, but yeah, they played amazing and they kept fighting right till the end, so that's all we can wish for.
In a game they dominated in front of more than 74,000 fans, the Matildas know this was the trophy that got away.
Probably one of the hardest. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this.
Micah Hamano's astonishing wonder goal was worthy of a final.
And they're off the mark!
The Matildas played easily their best game of the tournament, pushing the world number 6 like no other team had been capable of. Only errant strikes and heroic defence could deny them.
We found a way to win the game, even if it wasn't our best game, and we couldn't really find our own rhythm. But the character of the players, the way they never stop playing and they believe in themselves.
They can't drop their heads. They've got to keep going forward now because we're at a very, very good point, a really delicate point to go forward at the next stage.
The 16-year wait for a trophy will go on till at least next year with the Women's World Cup in Brazil and then the LA 2028 Olympics. For now, moving on from the pain is the only option.
The desire's always there. You know, we're always going to try to put our best foot forward.
The first step comes in just a few weeks for a friendly series in Africa. Amanda Shalala, ABC News, Sydney.
The Australian women's team has defeated the West Indies by 17 runs to take an unbeatable 2-0 lead in the 3-game series in St Vincent. Elise Perry top scored with 42 as the tourists made 5 for 164. In reply, the West Indies were restricted to 4 for 147 and Alana King took 2 wickets. Adelaide has defeated the West Coast Fever 66-53 in round 2 of the Super Netball season. After a strong first quarter, the Fever began to falter as Adelaide's new star recruit Elmarie Vanderberg heaped on goals. West Coast crumbling under the pressure of the in-form hosts, losing by 13. In the Women's A-League, Canberra United has moved above Adelaide on the ladder after a tough loss for the Reds on the road. Bethany Gordon scored early for Canberra, Sarah Morgan responding to even the score for Adelaide. A costly own goal from Adelaide's young gun Elona Meleg putting Canberra ahead. Emma Hawkins sealed the win and a last-minute goal from Adelaide wasn't enough, Canberra winning 3-2. Well, time to check the weather now, and thanks to David Farlam for tonight's photo taken of a storm over the Painted Desert in the state's far north. There was plenty of sunshine across Adelaide today. We reached a top of 29 degrees about 2:30 this afternoon after an overnight low of 11.9. It was a mainly fine day statewide after a chilly start in Kingscote after it dropped to just 7 degrees there overnight. It reached 32 in Woomera and 30 in Renmark. Cloud in WA's north is bringing the odd showers there, while clouds swirling over the top end around ex-tropical cyclone Narelle is generating heavy rain. That activity will continue tomorrow over northeast WA, and a monsoon will maintain wet weather across the remaining northern tropics. Showers are expected to persist along the east coast. Interstate, a mostly sunny 30 degrees in Perth, 32 for Alice Springs, showers and 27 in Sydney and 25 degrees for Melbourne. Back home, there'll be possible light showers about the pastoral districts and central parts, but it'll be dry elsewhere. 32 degrees for Lee Creek and 33 for Port Augusta. Further south, possible morning fog patches are expected about southeastern districts, 32 degrees in Maitland and Keith. A flood warning is still current for our inland rivers, especially the Warburton River and Lower Cooper Creek around Inaminka. It'll be mostly sunny in Adelaide tomorrow. We're heading for a top of 31 degrees in the city, dropping to 18 overnight. On the waters, variable winds about 10 knots with seas below 1 metre. The sun will rise at 20 past 7 and set around 7:30. And looking ahead, sunny and 31 degrees for Tuesday, partly cloudy on Wednesday and Thursday, 19 on Friday, and for this time next week it'll be sunny with 25 degrees. And that's the latest from the Adelaide newsroom. Thanks very much for your company. Have a great night.